Is it safe to assume that your GYN can give you good sex advice? I'm Cathy from the IntimacyDojo.com, and I'm here with Erika from the Open Photo Project. Thanks for being here, Erika.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we were talking offline a little bit about whether you could turn to your GYN or your obstetrician for advice about sex, like how to have good sex or what is safe to have sex around. And we both had some opinions, so do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, absolutely. So much. Yeah, I mean, so I wore this necklace because for this conversation, so this is a whole pictorial structure rendered by an artist in glass, so of course it's not exactly anatomically correct. But I was wearing this necklace recently when I went to a doctor, and she was a GYN, and she didn't recognize what it was. And it just, and she's really great, and I've seen her before, and, maybe it's not exactly anatomically correct to the necklace, but
I knew what it was immediately, so.
But, it just really makes me think about, like, the training that a lot of doctors get. It's not necessarily pleasure-centered, and it's very specific, it's very focused. If you're a GYN, you know how to do pap smears, you know what the reproductive system looks like, and you're not necessarily learning about pleasure, I guess. And so, it's an example of something that comes up, I think, for a lot of people in different ways. And in terms of like, I'm stumbling a little bit. Just like pause and rewind. Okay. So in terms of pleasure-based things, I have never really felt comfortable talking to a GYN, and I think there's just still a lot of sex shame and negativity, and even in the medical profession where we're supposed to feel safe talking to our doctors about this kind of stuff. Our doctors are people too who grew up in this culture too, and don't necessarily have all open-minded and exposure to a lot of different things. For example, not even around pleasure, but just around safety and STI screening. As someone who is non-monogamous myself, I go for STI screenings more regularly than I did when I was monogamous. And I had to explain to my doctor, when I said that I wanted to get an STI screening, she's like, "You're married. Why?"
Yeah.
And and then I told her, "Oh, well, we're in an open relationship. We both have other partners." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And then it was fine.
Yeah.
Doctors have negative reactions in that, and it's just, I don't know. I think the proper response to "I would like an STI screening" is, "Okay, is there anything you're particularly concerned about?"
Yes, I think that's a great, because you could have been married for 10 years and realized that neither of you had ever been tested. Like, even if you were strictly monogamous and no suspicion of cheating, it could be just, I just want to, for my own peace of mind, I want to be tested. We never talked about this. And
right. And aside from the fact that 50% or more of marriages have some sort of infidelity at a certain point, so it could have been a trauma thing that I just had recently been cheated on, or other people might have suspicions and want to get tested. I mean, there's so many reasons.
Or maybe someone was sexually assaulted. There's a lot of reasons that you could want to.
There's so many reasons. And I think it's really important for medical professionals to be at least aware of that.
It's so hard to ask in general. Like, it's hard to bring it up, and if they're like, "Why?" dismissive, a lot of people would just say, "Oh, never mind," and not ever bring it up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, or if you're going to feel ashamed in the tiniest bit at your doctor for something that you're already a little bit concerned about, it's already sensitive.
Yeah.
It needs to be a safe space, and I think that hopefully medical professionals are able to get access to training about stuff like this, that other relationship styles, other, sexual practices, whether it's non-monogamy or kink, and the things that can go with that.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people aren't aware. I know when I was in Dallas, I had a really nice OBGYN who was highly rated. She'd only been out of school like 4 or 5 years, so she was recently educated. And I brought up things like I was dealing with vaginismus, a lot of pain. She's like, "Oh, well, we can do these series of." It was actually the person she referred me to wanted to do electric shock therapy to my vagina, and then they were talking about surgery for the pelvic floor, and it wasn't that. It was an emotional thing, but no one was helping me understand why my vagina was spasming all the time. Like, she didn't know. And when I talked about clitoral legs and squirting, she's like, "Oh, those don't exist." Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, no, they do. And she couldn't help me with it. Whereas the doctor I have out here in California has been really wonderful and is very educated. But I suspect she took that on herself, not that she got it from a medical professional.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I've heard some horror stories. I mean, it's really a shame. And for example, like there was a case where somebody who had maybe I shouldn't even talk because I don't even know the exact term. But basically, the doctor prescribed her something for her vagina, but didn't tell her that it was not compatible with certain types of condoms. That it would break down the condom material. So she's using a medicine. But the doctor didn't think to check in about if she's sexually active and maybe how that would affect her own safety if it takes away from the safety of sex. And maybe because doctors aren't trained to think about it, maybe because they're embarrassed to talk about it. But there's definitely something addressed in a lot of medical professionals with that.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking about like if someone's in kink, if they're pregnant, what is okay to do? Like a lot of doctors don't understand kink at all, and it was until recently considered very deviant, and which is sad. People should be able to enjoy their bodies as they like, but if you're pregnant, how do you talk to your doctor? Or do you show up at your doctor with bruises, or do you abstain for a while?
Yeah, and medical professionals hopefully know how to determine if the bruise that you have is from a consensual, happy spanking session, or if it's because you're being abused at home and you don't feel safe. And the same thing, if you have a health condition, if you're taking a certain medication, is that possible that a certain kink activity or sex activity could be not compatible with it? And I think a lot of people would be afraid to ask their doctor about that, and a lot of doctors might have, and it might be because they would have a negative or shock reaction at the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think it's really important for us to pay attention to that. I mean, I'm really grateful for doctors. That my GYN has helped me with a lot of things, and they have studied a long time. They understand some things really well. But for sex advice, especially pleasure-based sex advice, I would encourage people to figure out if their doctor is a good source or not, because individuals vary a lot.
In a lot of the forums that I'm on, whether it's Facebook or other non-monogamy forums, that's a question that comes up every few months, for sure. It's either someone posts, does anybody know of any non-monogamy or sex-positive, sex-aware therapists in Erika, or physicians, OB/GYNs that are, aware of all these things, the recommendations. So if you are a physician who is aware and non-judgmental about this stuff, you're going to get a loyal following for sure. But it's also hard to find them in word of mouth in the poly communities or in the sex-positive communities. Is really the way that I've heard of learning about these doctors.
Yeah. And if there's any doctors or therapists watching this now, I encourage you, in your ad, put that you're poly-friendly or kink-friendly, because we are looking for people out there that we can go to that are aware of the different issues we might run into and how bodies actually respond.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And adding into that, which we didn't even talk about, it's a whole other thing, is gender awareness and gender issues. Whether they're going to be able to talk to somebody who's non-binary or transgender about the things that they need to be able to talk about.
Yeah,
and not assuming the type of sex that you have based on your body parts. Based on you have higher risk for this or that based on the type of body you have, because different sexual activities present you with different types of risks.
They do. And even just assuming, gender is a really big issue, but even if you're older or you're bigger, I've had doctors say, you're having sex? And I'm like, yeah. Just because I'm a bigger person doesn't mean I don't have sex. And there was that shame of having someone be shocked that I was having sex. It was painful. So if we can find people that are very open and educated, that's great. Please let the community know if you find some.
Yes, and if you're a physician out there and this is all news to you, please get educated.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch our YouTube channels. There's a lot of different resources out there. Thanks very much, Erika. I'm glad we got to talk about this.
Thank you, Cathy.
Yeah.